There's something happening to your body right now. And most men don't even notice it until it's already been going on for years. It starts small, a little slower than usual, a little more effort. Maybe you wake up once at night and think, nothing, just a weird night. But then it happens again, and again. And suddenly, you're planning your day around where the bathrooms are, and you tell yourself, it's probably just age. It's probably just the prostate. But here's the thing nobody tells you. It's not just the prostate. Let me ask you something. Do you ever finish urinating and feel like you didn't really finish? Like there's still something left, but nothing comes out? Or maybe you're standing there, waiting and waiting, and the stream starts slow, stops, starts again. Some men start waking up at 2 a.m., then 3 a.m., then twice a night. And they lie back down thinking they'll fall asleep easily, but they don't, because part of their brain is already listening for the next signal. Others stop drinking water after 6 p.m., not because they read it somewhere, just because their body started making that calculation automatically. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to keep watching. Because what's actually going on is more interesting and more fixable than you've probably been told. Now here's where most people get it wrong. The moment a man starts having these issues, someone, a doctor, a friend, the internet, points at the prostate and says, "That's your problem. Prostate's getting bigger. Nothing you can do." And that becomes the story. But researchers have been looking at this more carefully, and what they found is that the picture is a lot more complex. Yes, the prostate is involved, but it's not a simple big prostate Hertz bad flow equation. Think of it like a highway system. The prostate is one intersection, but traffic also depends on the roads leading in, the signals working correctly, the pressure on every lane. Two men can have the exact same prostate size and have completely different symptoms. So what's the difference? That's where things get interesting. Here's what no one talks about. This isn't just about inconvenience. A weak urine flow isn't just annoying, it's a signal. And like most signals, the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. When the bladder has to work harder than it should, it starts to change. The muscle walls thicken. The bladder becomes less flexible. And at some point, the signal it sends to your brain, "It's time to go," starts firing earlier and earlier. That's why some men feel urgent. Not because their bladder is full, but because it's been under pressure for so long, it gets nervous. And the sleep disruption, that's its own problem. Every interrupted night affects testosterone recovery, cortisol balance, mental clarity. It stacks. But the thing that bothers me most men wait years before doing anything about it. They normalize it. They adjust their life around it. They stop mentioning it. And by the time they do something, the window for easy support has narrowed significantly. So let's talk about what's actually driving this. Because the answer is in the biology, and it's been sitting in the research for decades. So let's go back to the question I left open. Why do two men with the same prostate size have different experiences? The answer comes down to three things: inflammation, hormonal balance, and tissue response. Let's start with inflammation. Most people associate inflammation with pain, a swollen ankle, a sore throat. But there's a slower, quieter form of inflammation that doesn't hurt at all. It just creates pressure. Subtle, persistent pressure in the pelvic region that affects how easily fluid moves through. Some studies have looked at how this low-grade inflammation interacts with prostate tissue. And what they found was that reducing it had meaningful effects on urinary symptoms. Not because the prostate shrank dramatically, but because the tissue around it responded differently. Now here's where the natural compounds come in. Researchers have been studying a handful of plant-derived substances for their potential effect on exactly this kind of inflammation. One of them is beta-sitosterol, a plant sterol found in seeds, nuts, and certain vegetables. There have been multiple trials looking at beta-sitosterol and its relationship to urinary flow scores. The results were, let's say, worth paying attention to. Another one is pumpkin seed oil. This one surprised a lot of people when it started showing up in research. Pumpkin seeds have long been used in traditional medicine in Eastern Europe, particularly for men's health, but it took decades for researchers to actually run controlled studies on it. When they did, they observed potential support for bladder muscle tone and urinary frequency. Then there's PygeuM, an extract from African cherry bark. It has one of the longer research histories of any botanical compound in this category. Some studies observed improvements in nighttime urination and flow rate in men who used it over several weeks. And then there's lycopene, the antioxidant that gives tomatoes their red color. Most people know it as the tomato thing. But there's been a growing body of research specifically looking at lycopene and prostate tissue health. Some researchers believe it may help reduce oxidative stress in that region, which brings us back to the inflammation question. Here's the thing. None of these work dramatically on their own, but what researchers started to notice is that the combination, the overlap between them, seemed to produce better results than any single compound alone. That's not a coincidence. That's how the body tends to work. It doesn't respond to one input. It responds to a system. And now, if you've been following along, something should be clicking into place. Remember the two men I mentioned? Same prostate size, different symptoms? The difference isn't luck. It's not just genetics. A big part of it is what's happening at the cellular level, the inflammation, the antioxidant environment, the quality of the tissue. Men who eat diets high in certain plant compounds, seeds, vegetables, specific phytonutrients, consistently show up differently in studies on urinary health. Not because those foods are magic, but because they're giving the body what it needs to regulate itself more effectively. The problem is that most men don't eat that way consistently, and even when they try, the amounts you'd need to get meaningful levels of beta-sitosterol or lycopene from food alone, it's a lot. That gap is why researchers started looking at how to concentrate these compounds. And here's where the story gets practical. Over the past decade, a number of formulas have emerged specifically designed to combine these compounds: beta-sitosterol, PygeuM, pumpkin seed oil, lycopene, in doses that reflect what was actually studied. The thinking was straightforward. Instead of hoping a man's diet covers all these bases, deliver them together in a form the body can actually use. The early versions were hit or miss. Some products threw in impressive ingredient lists but ignored bioavailability, how well the body actually absorbs what you put in it. Others focused on one compound and ignored the rest. But the formulas that have stayed relevant, the ones with consistent feedback, tend to share a few things. They use meaningful doses, they combine multiple mechanisms of action, and they're designed for consistency over time. Because that's the other thing worth knowing. None of this works like a medication. You're not taking something and feeling a dramatic shift the next morning. You're giving your body the raw material it needs to do what it was always trying to do: regulate inflammation, support tissue health, maintain flow. That takes weeks, not days, and it takes consistency. One of the formulas that's been gaining attention, and that checks most of these boxes, we'll leave a link below for anyone who wants to look into it. We're not here to push anything, but if you've been dealing with what we just described, It seems worth knowing it exists. What I'd say is this. If you've been adjusting your life around this problem, the bathroom timing, the sleep interruptions, the quiet anxiety of it, you deserve more than just being told, "That's normal." It might be common, but that doesn't make it inevitable. We started this video with a simple question. Why are some men perfectly fine at 60 while others are struggling at 42? The answer isn't just the prostate. It never was. It's inflammation. It's the antioxidant environment. It's whether the body has what it needs to keep those systems running cleanly. And here's what I want you to take from this. The symptoms you've been normalizing. Waking up at night. The weak stream. The urgency. Your body has been trying to tell you something. Not that things are falling apart, but that something specific is out of balance. And specific imbalances have specific solutions. If this video made you think differently about what's happening, that was the goal. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper, the research behind everything we talked about today, we'll have more in the links below. Take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you.